Anytime I have the opportunity to visit a farmer, one of the most important things I learn from them is the mistakes that they have made so that we can learn from it. I think the biggest risk in investing in farming in Africa and most other business is the fact that the risk is so high because we don't have the supporting system and the expert that we need to be able to succeed. The only way you can learn and do things better is by learning from other people's mistakes. And therefore today, I'm going to be talking to Latman about how and what mistake he has made in fish farming and how he has been able to succeed in it so that you and I can learn something and take it to our farm. So if you're ready to learn, then get ready because we are going to have a deep discussion into mistakes that people make when starting a fish farm. Come along and let's head out. Hi, Gabby. Thank you so much for again hosting us and giving us the opportunity to learn from you. As you know, here at Farming in Africa, we like to talk about the practical aspect of things because that's what is happening. We like to talk to people like you who have been in the business for such a long time and done all the mistakes so that we don't have to follow it. So we are going to ride on your mistakes and get better. In this video, we want to learn about some of the mistakes that new beginners into catfish farming should avoid. So what are some of the mistakes that you think people make and should avoid?
So the first one I would say has to do with setup.
Having
the right setup is very important. Now people do set up their fish farms and then sometimes it takes them too long to flush out the water or too long to refill the water. So if you have this, if let's say it's taking you too long, then it means that you are going to stress your fish. And the major cause of fish death is actually stress. So if you have your setup being tailored in a way that anything delays, then you have a challenge. Another bit of the setup will also be in terms of let's say you have a concrete tank. And then your concrete tank hasn't been well built, and then you have leakages. Now, I faced that challenge actually. You fill in the water after a couple of days. Sometimes not days, like short while. The water goes back. You have to refill. Goes back. You have to refill. Another bit of it is also properly curing your tank in terms of setup. So if you have a concrete tank, if you have an earthen pond, and then some of these plastic tanks, you need to properly cure your pond. That includes getting either cow dung, poultry manure, allow it to be in the pond for quite a number of time. And then it's going to help you to be able to cure them properly, because if it's a concrete tank, you have the cement components and other things over there. And so when you cure it, it will take away those toxic components from the pond before you introduce your fish. Other than that, you can introduce your fish and then in about 3 days, 4 days, all your fish will die. And so it is very important that we take note of that with respect to the setup.
That's very key. In every farming or agriculture sector, even when you're doing crops, your soil, how you process it, tilling the soil, all these things helps in the production rate of your yield. So that's very key. Before we go to the mistake number 2, setup. You've talked about having the right setup. Somebody's watching us, he just wants to go. He doesn't even know any type of setup. So what are the types of setups that are available?
Okay, so depending on where you want to farm, because there are some places that earthen ponds will work over there, that concrete tanks will not work over there. So in terms of setup, we have the plastic tanks. They are made up of the IBC tanks, and then also you can use your poly tank and any tank at all you have in your home. Then we have the concrete tanks. These are the ones that are made out of blocks and then concrete. And then we have the earthen tank. The earthen tanks are the ones that we dig the ground, and then we have the fish in there. We have the tarpaulin tanks. That is the one that you can easily move them from one point to the other. And then the last one is the cage farms. Now the cage farms are the ones you see across the lakes where people have built some cages and then they are farming their fish over there. Now with each and every one of these particular tanks, there are things that you need to take note of. For example, with the tarpaulin tank, you are looking for a certain level of texture of the material. You are looking for the metal works that will support the material to be strong enough to be able to hold the quantity of water you're going to have inside.
Yeah.
And then also you need a plumbing that is being done for that to be okay, so that there are no leakages. With the cage farms, for example, you need to make sure that your farm is being situated at the right place. For example, a water is running from point A to point B, and then you are in the middle.
Yeah.
If there's a farmer on your left and then there's a farmer on your right, and then they have a disease, they have a problem,
Yeah.
that thing will be moved to your farm.
Yeah.
Now with the earthen tanks, when you excavate, you need to make sure that you maintain the shape of your tank.
Yeah.
And so people do excavate their tanks and then they don't maintain their shape. How to maintain your shape is basically have reinforced dikes. So you put sand in bags, and then you can use that to enforce the dikes. You also need to make sure that with earthen ponds, you create around it a boundary so that water cannot easily rush into it and then destroy that. Now with the square tanks, most of them, they have chemicals that have been placed in them.
Yeah.
And so you need to effectively take out the chemicals, and then you sterilize the tank.
Yeah.
So in sterilization, we sterilize the concrete tank, the plastic tank, and then the tarpaulin tank. And the sterilization is being done with salt. Okay. So these are the small things that I'll talk about in relation to this.
Don't repeat this mistake, guys. This information is out there for you. So thank you so much. I tried tilapia fish at home.
Okay.
And I hated it, guys. I don't know if I shared that video with you guys, but anytime I would change the water, about half would die.
Yeah.
So I was like, when you talked about the stress and changing water, because I didn't have very easy way to, and that experience, I feel like the setup was a huge component of that. So the people that came to set up should have done it better in a way that water can flow easily out and in very easily. So thank you for sharing that. What's mistake number 2 that people should avoid?
Mistake number 2 will be underestimating not just the cost aspect of it, but then the requirement in terms of resources.
Okay.
With the farming. What I mean by that is you have people who they are being told with this amount of money, easily you can set up the tank. Yeah. You have to also do your due diligence in that particular respect. Yeah. Because many tanks have been built for people. People have started a fish farm. There are farms where people have a tank and then they place in, let's say a tank is supposed to take 1,000 fish. They place in like 2,000 fish. And then someone tells them, oh, when you are taking care of them, this one, you may not necessarily need the water to go out. And they underestimate all of the inputs in retrospect to this. So to be able to correct this mistake, it is important that you know exactly how much it's going to cost you to set up, how much water you would need to run your farm. So if you are supposed to be changing the water, make sure, what we do is we make sure there is plan A, plan B, plan C for water as an input. So plan A, let's say you have sunk a borehole. Yeah. Plan B is, let's say you have a submarine water. And then plan C is you buy from other sources. Now, all of these sources, you make sure that at that particular point in time where you are farming, you don't need all the water available. Yeah. But you should know that when I face this challenge, I can always go here and get water from here. And you quantify it in terms of cost. Because some people feel that, oh, maybe you need X amount of water, and then you face a challenge in your farm, you may need to flush the water, and then the water is not forthcoming. Yeah,
that's part of planning. So that's good. What is mistake number 3 that we should avoid as beginner fish farmers?
Mistake number 3, I'll take it to training.
Training, okay.
So in terms of training, if you are going big, and you are going commercial, make sure you get trained before you start. Reason being is a lot of the farms we visited, when they make the mistake and they lose their fish, sometimes the farm is not able to recover. You understand me? And then there are some farms that we visited, and then the mistakes are actually petty mistakes
that could be avoided.
Exactly. Yeah. And some of them will basically be even just recording the mortalities you are facing in your farm. So that when you call an expert to come in, a vet to come in there to take care of to treat the fish, they have data to work with. But then if you do not make sure that you are trained. You wouldn't even know some of these things.
Yeah.
Also, when you are trained and there is a challenge in your farm, you'll be able to detect it quite fast enough. Because me, for example, during my phase of learning, I lost close to 700 fish in a day.
Yeah.
And these 700 fish, they were left to 2 months to be in the market.
Wow.
And the challenge was all because I didn't know that at that particular size, I needed to move them into another tank. And then the water quality is something I need to pay attention to. And so I had changed the water all right, but within a short while, the water became unhealthy for the fish, and then they all decided to die.
Okay, yeah, that's crazy. Like, those are mistakes again that we don't want you to repeat, and that's why we are bringing you this video as well. You talked about market as being the last mistake that people should. Can you speak more to that?
All right, so just like any other business, first of all, treat your fish farming as a business.
Yeah.
That is, if it is a business to you.
Yeah.
If it's a hobby, then that's a different situation altogether.
Yeah.
Now, in every business, you do a feasibility.
Yeah.
And then you check what is going to take you to start, how it's going to, what your operational cost is going to be.
Yeah.
But then also what the market is interested in.
Yeah.
And so with us, what we normally do tell our farmers is when you identify fish farming as something you want to do, and you want it to be sustainable, emphasis on sustainable,
Yeah.
then even before you start culturing the fish, go to these markets and look at the size of the fish, the price of the fish, how do they want the fish, how do they want it processed. Do you know that there are some processed fish that when you sell in the market, people don't buy?
Why?
Ghanaians are interested in what we call the flavor.
Okay.
And the flavor is given to us by the wood components that is used to process the fish. And so there are some places that we've taken fully gas, mechanized facility to just produce, and then the sales is not forthcoming. But then in that same setup, we realized, okay, maybe let me just add a bit of some sugarcane peels, and then the market is back. So you need to understand the quality, the preference of the market. What size is the market interested in? And you can't have this information sitting in your homes. So you have to go to the market. Whoever you want to sell to, the individuals, the African markets, wherever you are trying to sell to, just make sure you go there and seek the information. Then based on that information, you come and then you process. So when your fish is almost ready, you already know people you are going to sell to, and then it's no more a challenge for you to sell your fish.
Wow, this is very enlightening, guys. As every business, you need to understand your market, because once you know your market, then you definitely know what the market needs and be able to prepare towards it, so that you don't even overspend to the point where you take your product to the market and you're running at a loss because you didn't do the initial research that is needed. Thank you so much. Today we've learned about 4 mistakes. We talk about setup. How do you set up your your pond, whether it's being taporine, whether it's being egg pond, whether it's being cages. How do you set it up the right way so that you do not make a mistake that will cost you more than you have even spent on your fish. The second thing we talked about, training, right? The knowledge. That's why these channels are there. Don't just even listen to us. After my channel, go to his channel, go to more channels, seek the knowledge, do your research, proper research. Once you're very convinced, start putting money into it. The third one we talked about is what? Underestimating the cost and the requirements that you need to actually do it, right? So this will come through the research that you do. You get more knowledge, you get to plan better. Of course, there's going to be minimal risk, but you can reduce that risk to the minimum as you can. And then lastly, we talked about the market, which is my favorite because it applies to everything that you do. Without the market, you have no business. And if you're looking at it as a business, then you need to know who you're serving. And that is very important. These are knowledge that is worth so much. So we want to say a big thank you. I know everybody from the Farming in Africa family is very pleased with what you share with us. And I hope you guys will go to his channel, support him as well. And if you're interested, there's so many educational videos there that can help you make your farming dream come true. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week with another video.